What would you do if you couldn't speak but desperately needed help? What if your only hope was a four-legged officer who understood a language no one else could hear? On a cold November evening in Portland, Oregon, 8-year-old Marcus Chen did something extraordinary. With no words, no screams, just a subtle gesture that most people would have missed entirely, he saved not just himself, but 11 other children trapped in unimaginable circumstances. This is the true story of how one silent signal changed everything. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll never look at police dogs or the power of human connection the same way again. Before we dive in, if you appreciate stories that restore your faith in humanity, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel is dedicated to sharing real stories of courage, compassion, and incredible bonds between humans and animals. And leave a comment below telling me about a time an animal helped you in an unexpected way. Now let's go back to where it all began. Marcus Chen was not like other 8-year-olds. Born with selective mutism, a severe anxiety disorder that prevented him from speaking in most social situations, Marcus lived in a world of silence. At home with his mother, Sarah, he could whisper a few words. But outside those walls, at school, in public, his voice simply wouldn't come. Sarah had learned to read her son's eyes, his small gestures, the way his fingers would tap against his leg when he was nervous. They had developed their own language, a mother and son connected by something deeper than words. Marcus attended Jefferson Elementary, where he had a dedicated aide who understood his condition. He was a bright child, excelling in art and mathematics, communicating through drawings and written notes. His teachers described him as gentle, observant, always watching the world with those deep, thoughtful brown eyes. November 14th started like any other Wednesday. Sarah walked Marcus to the school bus stop at 7:45 a.m., kissed his forehead, and watched the yellow bus pull away. She had no idea it would be the last normal moment of her life. Marcus never made it to school that day. When Sarah's phone rang at 9:30 a.m., her heart stopped. It was Principal Hendricks. Marcus hadn't arrived, wasn't on the attendance sheet. Sarah's hands shook as she called the bus company. Yes, Marcus had boarded. The driver remembered seeing him take his usual seat, third row from the front, right side. But somewhere between that bus stop and Jefferson Elementary, Marcus had vanished. The Portland Police Department launched an immediate investigation. Detective Lisa Rodriguez took the lead, a 15-year veteran who specialized in missing children cases. Within hours, they had reviewed traffic cameras, interviewed the bus driver and every child on that route, canvassed neighborhoods. Nothing. It was as if Marcus had simply dissolved into the morning air. Cases like this, Detective Rodriguez would later recall, they haunt you. A child who can't even call out for help, who can't tell anyone what happened to him. We knew we were racing against time, and we had almost nothing to go on. The media picked up the story by that evening. Local news stations broadcast Marcus's photo, a small boy with glasses, a shy smile, wearing a blue jacket with a spaceship patch his grandmother had sewn on. Sarah made a tearful plea on camera, her voice breaking as she held up one of Marcus's drawings, a picture of their family with their cat, Milo. Days turned into a week, then 2. The leads dried up. The news cycle moved on to other stories. But Sarah never stopped searching, never stopped believing that somehow, somewhere, her silent son would find a way to come home. What no one knew yet was that Marcus wasn't alone, and what had happened to him was part of something much, much bigger. Marcus woke up in darkness, his head throbbing. The last thing he remembered was someone calling out on the bus, saying there was an emergency, a gas leak. Everyone needed to get off immediately. Adults in official-looking uniforms had been waiting. In the chaos, Marcus had been separated from the other children, led to a different vehicle. Now he was here. wherever here was. As his eyes adjusted, Marcus could make out shapes in the dim light filtering through high, grimy windows. He was in some kind of large room, concrete floors, metal walls. And he wasn't alone. He could hear breathing, soft whimpering, other children. Over the next hours, Marcus counted 11 others. They ranged in age from about 6 to 12. Some cried, some sat in stunned silence. A girl named Emma, maybe 10 years old, seemed to be trying to keep the younger ones calm, sharing a package of crackers she'd had in her backpack. 2 men guarded them, rotating shifts. They rarely spoke, but when they did, Marcus listened carefully. He learned they were in a warehouse district, somewhere industrial. He heard mentions of the shipment and moving them Friday. Today was Thursday. Marcus's stomach turned cold. The children had been taken for human trafficking. They would be moved tomorrow, scattered, sold, lost forever. Marcus felt the familiar tightness in his chest, the anxiety that always came when he needed to speak but couldn't. But this was different. This wasn't about raising his hand in class or ordering food. This was about survival. His and 11 other children's. He thought about his mother, how she'd taught him that communication wasn't just about words. "You have so many other ways to tell your story, Marcus," she'd say. "Your art, your actions, your heart. Don't ever think you're not heard just because you're quiet." That night, as the guards changed shifts and the warehouse fell into an uneasy silence, Marcus made a decision. He couldn't speak, but he could observe. He could plan. And when the moment came, he would find a way to communicate the most important message of his life. The next morning, Friday, brought new activity. The guards seemed nervous, checking their phones constantly. Around noon, one of them made a call. "Yeah, we're ready. Just waiting for the truck. Should be here by 3. 3 o'clock. That's when they'd be moved. Marcus looked at the other children. Emma was holding a little boy who couldn't have been more than 6. 2 older boys sat together, their faces blank with shock. A girl with pigtails drew circles on the floor with her finger, humming tunelessly. The afternoon crept forward with agonizing slowness. 2 o'clock came and went. Then 2:30. The guards started packing things up, preparing. At 2:47 p.m., something changed. Through the high windows, Marcus heard it. Sirens, but not coming closer. They seemed to be stationary, somewhere nearby. A lot of sirens. One of the guards looked at his phone and cursed. "There's some kind of situation 2 blocks over. Big police presence. We need to wait this out." The other guard paced nervously. "What if they're searching the area?" "For what? This place isn't on any registry. Just stay calm." But Marcus's heart had begun to race, not with fear now, but with something else. Hope. The police were close. Somehow, some way, he had to let them know where they were. But how? He couldn't shout. The windows were too high to reach. The doors were locked from the outside. That's when he heard it. A sound that made his breath catch. Barking. Not angry barking, but the focused, working bark of a police dog. 3 blocks away, Officer Jennifer Walsh and her K9 partner, a German shepherd named Bailey, were indeed investigating, but not the warehouse. Not yet. Officer Walsh had been with the Portland K9 unit for 6 years, and Bailey had been her partner for 4 of those. They were one of the most effective teams in the department, specializing in search and rescue. Bailey had found missing hikers, located evidence in criminal cases, and once tracked a lost elderly woman through Forest Park for 7 miles. But Bailey wasn't just trained to find people. She was cross-trained in detection, tracking, and something relatively new, recognizing signs of human trafficking. The training involved identifying specific stress pheromones, the chemical signals humans emit in extreme fear or distress, especially children. The situation they'd been called to was a suspected drug operation in an abandoned auto shop, but so far they'd found nothing. Walsh was about to radio that the tip was a dead end when Bailey suddenly stopped, her ears pricked forward. "What is it, girl?" Bailey's nose lifted, testing the air. Then she turned, pulling against the leash, not toward the auto shop, but toward the industrial park behind it. Walsh knew better than to ignore Bailey's instincts. "Okay, let's check it out." They moved through the industrial park, Bailey leading the way. The dog's demeanor had changed completely. This wasn't casual interest. This was alert, focused intensity. They passed 2 abandoned buildings before Bailey stopped at a third, a large warehouse with faded lettering on the side. Pacific Storage Solutions. Bailey sat, the signal that she'd detected something. Then she did something Walsh had rarely seen. The dog looked back at her and whined, a high, urgent sound. "Good girl. Stay." Walsh radioed for backup, reporting a possible situation at the warehouse. Then she began a careful perimeter check. The front entrance was chained. The loading dock in back had a padlock. But as she circled the building, she noticed something. Fresh tire tracks in the mud, and recently disturbed gravel near a side door. Someone had been here. Recently. As backup arrived, 2 patrol cars and Detective Rodriguez, who'd been nearby, Walsh explained what Bailey had detected. Rodriguez's face went pale. "We've had a K9 alert. That's probable cause." "We're going in." They assembled quickly, 4 officers, Detective Rodriguez, Walsh, and Bailey. They approached the side door. Walsh tested it, locked, but the frame looked weak. "Portland Police! If anyone's inside, make yourself known." Silence. Then very faintly the sound of voices, male voices, panicked. "We're coming in!" Inside the warehouse, Marcus heard everything. The police announcement, the guards' panic. "Out the back, now!" one of them hissed. They started herding children toward a rear exit Marcus hadn't even known was there. Emma grabbed the youngest children, trying to keep them together. Marcus's mind raced. The police were right outside, right there. But if the guards got them out the back, if they scattered the children, some might never be found. The police might search this empty warehouse and never know they'd been seconds too late. He needed to signal. But how? That's when he heard it again. Barking, but closer now, right outside. And suddenly, Marcus remembered something his teacher had shown the class months ago. A video about police dogs, about how they were trained, about the incredible things they could do. One segment had stuck with him. How K9 units could sometimes detect people through walls, through barriers, by scent and sound. The handler in the video had demonstrated how the dogs were trained to respond to specific human signals, even subtle ones, as part of their search and rescue work. The guards had gotten the back door open. Cold air rushed in. "Move! Quietly!" But Marcus didn't move. Instead, as the other children started filing out, he did something that surprised even himself. He ran, not toward the exit, but toward the front of the warehouse, toward where he'd heard the barking. "Hey, get back here!" One guard lunged for him, but Marcus was small and quick. He dodged between stacked pallets, racing toward the front. He could hear the police dog clearly now, just on the other side of the wall. And he remembered something else from that video. Police dogs were trained to respond to signals, even from people who needed help. The handler had shown how someone in distress could get a dog's attention. Marcus had no voice, but he had something else. He had rhythm. He began pounding on the metal wall, not frantically, not randomly. 3 quick hits, pause. 3 quick hits, pause. 3 quick hits. The universal SOS signal, something he'd learned in art class when they'd studied Morse code for a project. Then he added something else. He started scratching, making a high-pitched sound against the metal. Dogs' hearing was far better than humans. If any dog could hear him, this one could. Outside, Bailey's head snapped toward the warehouse wall. Officer Walsh felt the leash go taut as the dog lunged forward. "Bailey, what is it?" The rhythmic pounding came again. 3 hits, pause. 3 hits. and beneath it, that scratching sound. Walsh's eyes widened. "There's someone inside! Someone signaling!" Detective Rodriguez grabbed her radio. "We have an active distress signal from inside. Move in now!" The guards inside heard the commotion at the front and made a fatal error. They ran, leaving the children at the back exit and bolting into the industrial park. 2 officers gave chase while the others focused on the warehouse. Marcus kept pounding his signal until he heard the most beautiful sound, wood splintering as officers forced the door. Light flooded in. Bailey burst through first, Walsh right behind her. The dog found Marcus in seconds, sitting against the wall, his hand still raised to pound again. Bailey didn't bark, didn't lunge. Instead, she approached slowly, gently, and sat in front of Marcus, her tail wagging. Marcus looked into the dog's eyes, and for the first time in as long as he could remember outside his home, he smiled. "Are you hurt?" Officer Walsh knelt beside Marcus. He shook his head, then pointed urgently toward the back of the warehouse. "There are others?" Walsh asked. Marcus nodded vigorously, holding up his fingers. 10, then one more. 11. 11 other children? Detective Rodriguez had entered. "Where?" Marcus pointed toward the back exit and made a running motion with his fingers. "They're being moved! Back exit!" Rodriguez shouted. Officers rushed through the warehouse. The scene at the back was chaos. The children had scattered when the guards ran, confused and terrified. Emma had managed to keep 3 of the youngest together, hiding behind a dumpster. The officers found them first, then began a careful search of the surrounding area. Within 20 minutes, they'd located all 11 children, some hiding in bushes, others wandering confused through the industrial park. The 2 guards were apprehended 6 blocks away, trying to hotwire a car. Back at the warehouse, Marcus sat on the running board of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket. Bailey sat beside him, and Walsh noticed something remarkable. Marcus's hand rested on the dog's head, scratching gently behind her ears. Bailey's eyes were half closed in contentment. Detective Rodriguez approached with a notepad and pen. "Marcus, I'm Detective Rodriguez. I know you can't speak right now, and that's completely okay. But can you write for me?" Marcus took the pad. His hand shook as he wrote, but the words were clear. "Thursday. They said moving us Friday. Trafficking." Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "You understood what was happening?" Marcus nodded. He wrote more. "Heard them. Waited for chance." "You saved those children, Marcus. You know that, right? You saved them all." Marcus shook his head and pointed at Bailey, then at Walsh, then at all the officers. He wrote, "We all did." Walsh smiled, her eyes damp. "You're right. We all did. But Marcus, you gave Bailey the signal. You found a way to communicate when it mattered most. That took incredible courage." Marcus wrote one more thing. "Can I see my mom?" "She's on her way," Rodriguez said softly. "She's been looking for you every single day. She never gave up." Sarah Chen's car screeched into the industrial park at 4:23 p.m., barely an hour after the rescue. She'd been 2 miles away distributing flyers with Marcus's picture when Detective Rodriguez called. She saw him before her car had even fully stopped, her son sitting with a police dog, alive, safe, real. Sarah ran. She didn't remember her feet touching the ground. She just remembered the feeling of Marcus in her arms, solid and warm, and the way he clung to her, his small body shaking with sobs. "You're safe," she whispered over and over. "You're safe, baby. I've got you. I've got you." For long moments, they just held each other. Then Sarah pulled back, cupping Marcus's face in her hands. She didn't ask him to speak. She didn't need him to. She could see everything she needed to know in his eyes. The fear, the courage, the relief, the love. Marcus reached out and tugged his mother's sleeve, then pointed at Bailey. Sarah looked at the German shepherd who sat patiently nearby, watching the reunion with intelligent eyes. "This is Bailey," Sarah asked. Marcus nodded eagerly. Did Bailey help you? Marcus nodded again, then made a gesture with his hands like a heart. You love her? Sarah said. It wasn't a question. Marcus pulled the notepad toward him and wrote. She heard me when I couldn't talk. She understood. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She looked at Officer Walsh. Thank you. Thank you for listening to your dog. Thank you for finding him. Walsh knelt beside them. Marcus found us. He gave Bailey a signal she couldn't ignore. Your son is a hero, Mrs. Chen. Bailey, seeming to sense she was welcome, moved closer to Marcus. The boy wrapped one arm around the dog's neck and buried his face in her fur. The dog stood perfectly still, letting him hold on for as long as he needed. Over the following days, the full scope of what Marcus's signal had prevented came to light. The investigation revealed a trafficking ring that had been operating across 3 states, abducting children from school buses, shopping centers, and parks. The 12 children rescued from that warehouse were destined for a network that had victimized hundreds. The 2 guards arrested that day provided information that led to 17 more arrests, including the ring's leaders. Every single one of the 12 children was safely returned to their families. Emma's parents established a foundation to provide therapy and support for child trafficking survivors. The little boy Emma had protected during the ordeal, 6-year-old Tyler, told reporters, through his mother, Emma was brave, and Marcus saved us all. But for Marcus, the attention was overwhelming. He didn't want to be on the news. He didn't want interviews. He just wanted to go home, to sleep in his own bed, to draw pictures with Milo the cat purring beside him. The school provided him with counseling support, as did all the rescued children. Sarah never left his side for the first weeks, and gradually, slowly, Marcus began to feel safe again. But something had changed in him. Something profound. His therapist, Dr. Amanda Winters, noted it in her reports. Marcus has experienced trauma, yes, but he's also experienced empowerment. For the first time, his inability to speak in a traditional way didn't matter. He found another way to communicate, and that communication saved lives. He's processing this in a remarkably healthy way. 3 months after the rescue, Officer Walsh received permission for something unprecedented, a visit to the Chen home with Bailey. When Sarah opened the door, Marcus was doing homework at the kitchen table. But the moment he saw Bailey, his face transformed. He slid off his chair and ran to the dog, dropping to his knees and throwing his arms around her neck. Bailey's tail wagged so hard her whole body moved. She licked Marcus's face, then sat and offered her paw. Walsh had brought something with her, a certificate from the Portland Police Department, officially naming Marcus an honorary K-9 unit member for his courage and quick thinking. But she had something else, too. Marcus, she said, Bailey has been on the force for 4 years now. She's one of our best, but K-9 units have a tradition. When a dog makes a rescue that has significant impact, they're often given an award or honor. Bailey is being recognized for finding you and the other children. The department is hosting a small ceremony next month, and we'd like you to be there to present Bailey with her commendation. Would you do that? Marcus looked at his mother, his eyes wide and questioning. Sarah smiled through tears. If you want to, honey. Only if you want to. Marcus nodded. Then he did something that made Walsh catch her breath. He looked directly at her and, in the smallest, quietest whisper, said, Thank you. It was the first time he'd spoken to someone outside his family in years. Walsh blinked back tears. No, Marcus, thank you. You gave Bailey her signal. You trusted her to understand. That trust, that connection, that's what saved everyone. Never underestimate the power of making yourself heard in whatever way you can. The ceremony the following month was small and private, just the way Marcus wanted it. In the Portland Police K-9 training facility, surrounded by officers and all 11 of the children Bailey and Marcus had saved, Marcus stood beside the German Shepherd. Detective Rodriguez presented Bailey with a medal for exceptional service and the rescue of 12 endangered children. Then she turned to Marcus. "And we have something for you too, Marcus." She handed him a framed certificate and a patch, identical to the ones K-9 officers wore. Marcus Chen, Honorary K-9 Unit, Portland Police Department. Marcus looked at the patch, then at Bailey, then at all the faces around him. Emma was there, smiling at him. Tyler waved. All the children they'd saved, all safe, all home. And for the second time, Marcus spoke. Still a whisper, still quiet, but heard by everyone in that room. "We're a team." Bailey barked once, as if in agreement. Today, Marcus Chen is 11 years old. He still has selective mutism, though he's made remarkable progress with his therapist. He speaks more at home, and sometimes at school with his closest friends. But he's also become an advocate for alternative communication, giving presentations, through his drawings and written words, about how everyone has a voice, whether spoken or not. Sarah Chen has started a nonprofit called Silent Signals, which provides support and resources for children with communication disorders and works to train first responders on recognizing alternative distress signals. Officer Walsh and Bailey continue to serve with the Portland K-9 unit. They visit Marcus regularly, and Marcus has become an unofficial K-9 unit mascot, often attending training sessions, when he feels comfortable, and helping demonstrate how dogs and humans can communicate across barriers. All 12 children rescued that day have recovered, each carrying the knowledge that they survived because one small boy found a way to be heard when it mattered most. The warehouse where they were held has been demolished. In its place, the city erected a small memorial park called Voices Garden, with 12 trees, one for each child, and a statue of a child kneeling beside a dog, both looking toward the sky. Engraved on the base are words Marcus wrote himself. "We all have a voice. Sometimes you just need the right listener." Bailey retired from active duty last year at age 9. The Portland Police Department made an unprecedented decision. They gifted Bailey to the Chen family, where she now lives as Marcus's personal companion and service dog. On quiet evenings, you can find them together in the backyard, a boy who couldn't speak and a dog who understood anyway, communicating in a language that has nothing to do with words and everything to do with trust, courage, and love. Marcus is learning to use his voice more every day, but he'll never forget the lesson that Warehouse taught him. That being heard isn't about how loud you are. It's about finding someone who's willing to listen. And sometimes, that someone has 4 legs, a wet nose, and a heart big enough to hear even the quietest signal. If this story touched your heart, please share it. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me, what's your story of overcoming obstacles to make your voice heard? Your story might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. Remember, you don't need words to be heard. You just need courage, and sometimes, a very good listener. Until next time, keep believing in the power of connection in whatever form it takes.